Hello and welcome back to another episode of On Music and Making. My name is Jeremy. I am the host, the producer, and the creator of this show, and I am also a concert pianist based in London. On this show, I talk to classical musicians about their craft and their stories. I ask them about how they got to where they are, how they see the world, and how they see their craft and their art, and I get really inspired by the conversations I have with them. So far in this show, I've only had pianists, so today I'm very happy to present a guest who is not a pianist, but in fact a composer. I met the Dutch composer Mathilde Wantenaar 3 years ago at the Milton Court Concert Hall in London, when the wonderful Britten Symphonia premiered her work, Rhapsody for Piano and Strings, with Daria van den Berken as the soloist. I remember being so taken aback by the striking melodies in her music, the bold characters, and the beautiful colors, as well as this seemingly natural ability to tell a very exciting and vivid story. And I was so impressed that I plucked up the little courage that I had as a student at the Guildhall School of Music, and I decided to go and speak to her afterwards. And I'm so glad that I approached her after the concert, because she was such a humble and open person and really down to earth, something that I think her music really honestly reflects. We have since kept in contact, and I have actually performed one of her works, Sprookjes, or Fairy Tales in Dutch, for piano and violin. It was 3 miniatures for piano and violin that she wrote during her student days. And I'm still waiting for the chance to perform that Rhapsody for piano and strings, which I guess symbolized the beginning of our friendship. Born and raised in Amsterdam, Mathilde studied classical composition at the Amsterdam Conservatory with Willem Jeths and Wim Henderickx, alongside other instruments such as the piano, cello, and viola. After completing her composition studies, she then went on to study classical singing with Rita and Noah Frenkel at the Royal Conservatory of The Hague until she received her first orchestral commission by the Rotterdam Philharmonic and an opera commission by the Dutch National Opera in 2019. Her music has been described as lyrical, enchanting, eclectic, and yet authentic. The combination of her craftsmanship and openness to a broad array of genres make her a very versatile composer. Since our first meeting, Mathilde's music and her career has grown considerably, so has the music halls in which they were heard. She has written for artists such as the pianist Daria van den Berken, cellist Elisa Weilerstein, and accordionist Vincent van Amsterdam. And her works have been played at Carnegie Hall, the Muziekgebouw, and many more very prestigious places. When I visited Mathilde at her very stylish apartment in Amsterdam back in March to record this interview, she was in the final month of writing a very monumental work for the Netherlands Chamber Choir. This was going to be a work that spanned the whole evening, and it was going to be called the Song of Koios. Over coffee before the interview, Mathilde very honestly told me about the anxiety that comes with writing such a big work and the intensity of her work process. But if anything, this intensity only heightened her awareness of what it means to be a composer, as well as what it means to really compose and to live this creative life. She became a lot more aware of the importance of sustaining one's mental health when faced with such big challenges, something that she would later on talk a lot about in the interview. At the time of publishing this episode, the Song of Koios has received its premiere already, and to great acclaim as well. The Netherlands Chamber Choir has then taken it on tour to large venues around the Netherlands, such as the Tivoli Vredenberg in Utrecht, the Muziekgebouw in Amsterdam, and culminating in a performance at the Orange Wood Festival on the 24th of May. A little bit about this piece, the Song of Koios. Koios in Greek means to ask questions. The Song of Koios, an evening-length work presented under the title Dear Professor, centers on the unstoppable scientific curiosity of humans, which can lead to both progress and destruction. Mathilde composed 3 brand new movements as a continuation of her successful chamber opera back in 2022, called Dear Professor Einstein, for which librettist Willem used letters from children to Albert Einstein, real letters that children wrote to Albert Einstein. Fascinating figures such as Aristotle, Alexander von Humboldt, Charles Darwin, Marie Curie, and Albert Einstein take us on a journey through time in this new piece that Mathilde has written as an extension of Dear Professor Einstein. With visuals, words, and music, the Netherlands Chamber Choir and Ensemble bring to life humanity's quest for knowledge and meaning. In the stunningly simple yet highly effective staging and direction by Yannick Werveij and Kenza Kuchukali, and I'm terribly sorry if I mispronounced those names. As a pianist, I very much understand the process of practicing and the challenges that come with performing. But I'm not so sure about the challenges that a composer faces, especially not one faced by Mathilde with such a huge work ahead of her. And so I was very, very excited and interested to see her perspective. In our conversation, Mathilde very honestly shared with me about her struggles with perfectionism, about her process of writing music, the importance of living a creative life in a very mentally healthy way, and the mixture of fear and excitement that comes with putting one's work out into the public. We also discussed the state of contemporary music in the modern world. Mathilde very interestingly talked to me about her need to block out the internet and social media when she's working. And she has very strong feelings about the role social media and internet now plays in the modern world and how they have ruled our lives and disconnected us from the beauty of the real world and from experiencing the beauty of real life. Most importantly, our conversation made me realize the importance of truly experiencing life and living it with an open mind and an honest heart. Something that artists must do, but something I believe holds true for everyone. In a world full of negativity and distractions, that is easier said than done. But Mathilde, through talking with her, shows herself to be that kind of person, and I still find myself constantly thinking about our conversation even a month after the interview, as it was so inspiring for me. I hope you will get as much out of this episode as I have talking to Mathilde. I appreciate Mathilde so much for being the person that she is, and I'm so glad that I decided to approach her after the concert 3 years ago. I guess sometimes it's good to meet your heroes. Anyways, enjoy this episode of On Music and Making with composer Mathilde Wantenaar. Thank you very much, Mathilde, for being here with me on my podcast today. I just wanted to talk about how we first met each other. It was in London at the Milton Concert Hall, and I remember it was a premiere of your work for, am I correct in saying it's the Britten Symphonia that commissioned your composition, the Fantasie for piano and strings?
Yes.
And I was so taken aback by the bold character of your piece that I just decided after the concert to approach you and to say hello, and then basically to ask if you had something that I could perform as well. And that's how we first met each other, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about that piece, actually? Do you still remember how this came about, the piece with the piano and strings, the Fantasie?
Yeah, so it was commissioned by Britten Sinfonia, but also Daria van den Berken, the pianist herself, and she was starting a piano biennale in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
So that's also where the piece was also performed.
Okay.
So it was like a co-commission.
Yeah.
And I remember writing the piece, and it was really fun to write it because I was also quite inspired by the soloist, Daria van den Berken, who is a really energetic person.
Have you met her before?
Yeah, well, when she approached me to write this piece, then of course we talked a lot about it in the process leading up to it. And then I still had this little bit of material from earlier pieces that I wrote. Actually, you performed one of those pieces because we have the sprookjes, so fairy tales for piano and violin solo.
Yeah.
And those are 3 little parts.
Yeah.
But actually, I once planned to write a 4th one, but I never got around to that. But I always remembered this little bit of material that I still had left because it was such a fun bit of material. It's very playful and just rhythmical.
Yeah.
It has a lot of 3 against 2 in it, but also a kind of counterpoint in it, which is a fun combination. So I still had that in mind. And then when Daria came to me, I was like, oh, maybe this piece could be good to use this bit of material that I have somewhere in the back of my head.
Oh, I see.
Still.
Okay.
And then that was the starting point. And then, well, I built it on that bit of material.
Oh, wonderful. And since then, I've seen you've been commissioned works by other orchestras. And, you know, I remember, well, the piece that I played by you was one of your first pieces, wasn't it?
It was
I
wrote it when I was still at the conservatory. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was a miniature, well, 3 miniatures for solo violin and piano. When I met you, it was a fantasy for piano and strings. And then since then, your work has been, you know, there's been an accordion concerto performed at the Concertgebouw, which is, of course, even larger in scale.
Well, actually, not Concertgebouw, the Accordion Concerto, but I have other orchestral pieces which have been performed at Concertgebouw.
I see.
But it has been performed in Vienna, so
okay.
It was also great.
Still
it was
very grand.
Yeah, very grand.
Yeah. And then what else? And I think I saw last year, was it that there was a work with cello and singers. It's the La Noche.
Yes. La Noche Oscura dell'Alma, yes.
Yeah, so, and that was also quite a grand piece as well. Are you working towards anything right now that's, you know, of a large scale?
Yeah, so I write really for all different kinds of skills.
Yeah.
Now I think skills like musical skills, but also a skill of works.
Yeah.
But so I write for orchestra, but also choir and also chamber music. So, and I don't really... Yeah, I like doing all these different things.
Yeah.
So in that way, I've also, this year I've written a piece for piano and clarinet for a CD of a duo.
Okay.
But now I'm writing a piece for choir and ensemble for the Dutch Chamber Choir. So yeah, and in the future I'm also going to write new pieces for orchestra again. So it's really quite diverse what I do. And I also write instrumental music, but also with text and opera. I like that.
Yeah.
But I like to have a really broad range of things to do.
At the same time?
Yeah, well, when I'm working on a piece, then I really exist in this one piece.
Okay.
But at the same time, I can have ideas about other pieces that I'm going to write in the future, that I'm talking with musicians who want to, you know, exchange some ideas and dream about the future, and then something always, you know, you plant the little seeds and then they grow into something. It takes some time. And
are there instances where, you know, for example, this big work you're working on at the moment, this idea you had already a long time ago, you've planned, but you put it aside and you come back to it and you realize, wow, this is something that actually could become something a bit more than when I first imagined it to be?
Yeah. So the piece that I'm working on right now, it's for the Dutch Chamber Choir.
Yeah.
And I wrote the first bit of it 4 years ago. So that was like a 20-25 minutes piece. But then they were really enthusiastic about it, and they asked me to write more, so that they could have a full program with this piece, because you cannot really program a piece of 25 minutes easily. But also there was this idea that we could make it a piece with 3 different parts, because the part that I wrote was about Einstein, and now the full piece is going to be about the curiosity that is linked to our humanity, and also from that comes science. And then we have 3 different scientists. So we have Charles Darwin, Marie Curie, and Einstein. And these are all separate but also connected pieces.
Yeah.
And now I'm writing these new parts about Darwin, about Curie, to add to the Einstein.
Yeah.
And that's really nice for me, because I was quite happy with the way that this piece about Einstein turned out. And then I was able to go back into this world and write new pieces based on this idea. So in that way it could kind of grow organically. But yeah, that's really unique for this piece.
Okay.
And I think, but that's also the fun bit about composing, that every time you write a new piece, it's just a new process and new people that you work with and a new atmosphere. And so, for example, this piece that I told you about for piano and clarinet, that's very different. And then I had the musicians, they came to my home and we had a lot of dinners together, and they really like poetry. So then we found a poem together, and we based the piece on that poem because I really wrote it for them, and they were going to record a CD and make a program to tour, which is around poetry. So then you have this completely different world of this piece, and then I'm doing that, and then maybe next time I do something completely different again. I have a piece for orchestra, and then I don't invite the orchestra over. It would be fun, but they don't fit here in my home. But
you'd become a chef rather than a composer.
Yeah. So it's, you know, each time it's something different, and because your question was like, do you start thinking about something and then it grows into something bigger?
Or has that happened, and that has happened for you as well?
Yeah, it kind of changes. Sometimes what often happens is that people come to me because they want to commission something.
Yeah.
So then the initial idea comes from outside.
Yes.
And that's actually also what happened here with Einstein, because a friend of mine was going to Merel Verkammen. She's a violinist. She also played the Sprookjes. But she was organizing this festival which wanted to combine music and science together. And she wanted for this festival a small opera about Einstein. And then I ended up being the one who wrote that. So she was like the initial initiator. But that's, I think, often how it happens, that I can come up with something myself, but I don't live in isolation. So people come to me, they have a vague idea, and then I have an association, and then creative ideas grow together, right? You inspire each other, and then at some point you have this plan of something that you need to make that didn't exist before, and that's always kind of mysterious. I have no idea what I'm going to write in like 3 years, what will happen, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting what you say about the collaboration, because you are so receptive to other people's ideas. I can kind of feel that in the music, in your music as well. It you know, you have your very distinct style, which, you know, I told you in person, but also I will say here, is that I feel that there are a lot of bold colors always, and, you know, there are certain motifs and strands of melody that catch you immediately and recur throughout your music, that makes it very easy for listeners to follow, whether they be into new music or not. But I think also that this strand of collaboration means that you can also span across a lot of different genres and styles, and that's what I've noticed in your music, is that, you know, it's never just your own idea, but you know, you're always seeking for other forms and other genres to inspire, you know? Yeah,
it's interesting that you interpret it that way, because to me it's more like, I really like this question about style, because actually the way that I think about style is just a shorthand for a collection of musical elements, right? When you say this style of this person or this style, what you actually mean is you refer to a music which has certain elements which made it kind of possible to distinguish it as that style.
True.
So that means, so you don't have to say, oh, I heard this chord and this kind of rhythm and this kind of form. That's, you know, then you have to name all the things that are in the style. So style is just a shorthand for this collection of musical elements. So in that way, I never really think in terms of style when I'm going to write something, because I mean, you can refer to a style when you have this association that you want a certain color.
Yeah.
But I always think of all the, as a composer, you have like a palette with all these different techniques and all the different parameters, and you can try to make your palette more extensive by, you know, learning new things. If you know more about rhythm, you know more about harmonic possibilities, all these things, then you have a lot of things to choose from. And then every piece that I write, I try to choose the colors and the lines that I want for that piece. But I don't really think of style in that way.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. It's like what elements you want to take in order to create the effect or the picture that you want.
Yeah, and I think there's always like an element also of personal taste in it, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's also how styles kind of organically happen, because you can have an expression, and the same expression, if you say a word, you know, just name an expression, and you give this an assignment to different composers, they will all come up with different ways to make this expression happen musically.
Yeah.
And that's based on their skills, you know, the thing that they are able to do, but also their taste, their personal taste.
Yeah.
So from that, organically, always a personal style, I think, will come forth for every composer, because, these are the things they can do and the things that they like to do.
And I suppose the more you do, then the more you understand your own tastes as well, and you know exactly what you want, how you want to achieve certain things that you like.
Yeah, and I think it's always also good to, as a composer, to be aware of your own preferences and question them, but not in a way like, oh, if I like this, but it has been done before, I shouldn't do it. I think that's kind of stifling if you look at it that way. But it's always good to think of, okay, I really like doing this, and that's good because I'm allowed to do what I like because I like it. I think it's beautiful. I want to share it.
Yeah.
But it's also good to think about, okay, where is there like a part in my art where I could explore new things and maybe add them to the things that I already have.
Yeah.
So I like this way of growing organically, and not this idea of, oh, you need to be original from day one and force yourself to do things that have never been done before. There's this kind of idea, I think, also amongst young composers at conservatory sometimes, that you need to be original and have your own voice.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think that's a good thing to maybe to want, but it's something you can trust will grow if you give yourself the space to breathe and to also take from the sources that draw you in. You know, you can borrow from, or even steal, or whatever you want to call it, from artists that really inspire you, because you hear elements in the music that touches you, that you want to play with as a composer. And I think that's like the most natural thing also in all the arts to do. You know, artists are always having conversations with each other through their art pieces. So I hear a beautiful chord in Debussy and I think, oh, this chord inspires me, I want to use it here, but I hear this rhythm in, I don't know, something completely different, maybe the tango music that my father plays, and I also want to add that. And, you know, so in that way all these things come together. And the style just grows.
I think if you try too early to just be different, you end up just isolating yourself, or in order to be different, you're stopping yourself from liking certain things or doing things that you inherently like, perhaps.
Well, I think that word inherently is important, because if you say like, okay, I just have to be different, then it feels like something forced and not creative, because it feels like closing a door, like I'm not allowed to do these things. But if you say like, okay, I want to explore things and I want to try different things and see if I can find something new, then it feels more like opening doors, or looking through windows. And that's, I think, the creative energy always needs to be inviting. And you can, of course, invite new things by placing limitations on yourself, but always as an exercise. So never as like an ideological thing, like, oh no, I'm not allowed to do this. But if you say, okay, I always write this kind of harmony, for example, and I want to see if I can broaden my horizons, then you can put a limitation on yourself, like, okay, now I'm going to write a piece where I'm only going to use these kinds of intervals and see what happens, to play around with it. But it should always come as an invitation and not as something stifling or just cutting off things. I think that's not good.
I think of course, I'm here in Amsterdam for just 2 days, so of course I went to book myself a visit at the Van Gogh Museum. And what I found very interesting was the museum yesterday that I went to visit. It follows the life of Van Gogh, and you see that he started off having a certain ideal, of wanting to paint peasant life, but then he went to Paris, and then, he absorbed a lot of inspirations from the Impressionists, from the Pointillists, from the Japanese prints that he encountered, and all these things like that. And then he absorbed, and then he went on to this countryside place in, I think, south of France, and you see how his paintings just carries all the elements of what he originally had, plus his influences to create the thing that has, people come to identify as Van Gogh. And I find that so inspiring that it's created from love, if you know what I mean. Like it's not from from scorn of like other people, but from gathering influences and collaborating and sharing ideas and making. And I think that's also something that people feel. And I certainly feel that in your music as well. You want people to know, you want people to hear this and say, oh, I recognize this kind of form. It's like a tango here. Or, I'm thinking of the Accordion Concerto. I want people to feel now that we're in Paris. It's not like this is music that is complicated and takes a lot of mastery to compose. Here's an extract of Mathilde's Accordion Concerto performed by Vincent van Amsterdam.
Yeah, and at the same time, I feel like I'm not even thinking about it that much because I also, how to say this? I think it's not very maybe respectful towards the audience if I'm going to decide for them what they like. Because, they are their own people and they're all different.
Yeah.
And same as for musicians. And they have their own taste and they're allowed to have their own thoughts on what I make. So the only authentic thing that I can do is to make something which I myself think is beautiful or interesting or for whatever other reason worthwhile to share with others. So again, it's an invitation, but I'm not here to steer how you feel about it, but I'm here to tell you a story and maybe the story bores you or maybe you are interested in it. And I'm not here to manipulate you, but I'm here to tell you a story and to offer you something from myself which I think is worthwhile. That's the only thing that I control. So that's the way I think about it.
And speaking of that, now that you're a more seasoned composer, I would say.
I'm old.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
You've gone through the experience of living through this very specific fear that composers probably encounter of how people will view their works. Do you still feel that way? At first, like, how will people receive my work? Because you were talking about, like, you can only do what you love. But of course, it's probably much harder. Easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever felt this nervousness when you premiere your work?
Yeah, for sure. So it's like this really mixed thing that, so on the one hand, I try to think like, okay, no, I cannot control what someone else is going to think and I shouldn't even want to do that. So I can only try to be authentic in my own choices. But at the same time, of course, I want the whole world to love what I do, because I pour my heart and soul into it. And when you try to make something, you want the musicians to enjoy the notes that you give them, and you want the audience to be blown away and to be moved by it. So of course I have this wish, but I always try to counter this wish to do something great with kind of this down-to-earth feeling of, okay, but all I can actually do is just to try my best and to try to make something which I think is beautiful. Yeah. But there's also like a part of it that inspires me when I think about musicians, and then I try to imagine what I would like to play as a musician. Then it's kind of like role play. Yeah. Almost. And then I'm also inspired by that. The idea that I'm writing notes which someone is going to have in front of them and they're going to play it. And also knowing that musicians spend so many hours developing their craft of playing piano or violin or whatever it is, that they're so one organism with this instrument that they dedicate such a large part of their lives to, and that I get to write notes where they can apply this art that they are building. That's very inspiring and a big honor for me. So when I think about that, I also, I have even more fun when I write a nice line for a cello, that I think, if I would be I have a cello here. I'm a really bad cellist, but I have a cello, and then I know a little bit this feeling of, it's so nice if I have this melody here, and now I'm going to these low notes and this line, and that's also something which inspires me to think about when I'm writing.
And of course, because as we can see, I mean, what is this instrument? This one?
This is from my husband. This is a Baroque guitar.
Ah, okay.
So that's my guitar and my cello and my very crappy violin, and I have a flute here because I thought I should also try wind instruments, and I have a clarinet on loan, and I have a trombone over there which doesn't fit in the corner anymore.
There we go.
And a piano here.
A very sympathetic composer to the instrumentalists.
Yeah.
Can't say that for every composer.
No? Yeah, I don't know. Because, maybe I sense a little bit in your questions that there's also this... this tension between what you call accessible music and maybe less accessible music.
Yeah, I do want to go more into that because I think me being a classically trained pianist, we're trained in the traditions of, people of the past, composers of the past as well. And I think that there exists also in conservatoire of composers nowadays needing to react against traditions in order to create new things. Mm-hmm. That's why I think there is a tension, existing between that, and also not a lot of composers are necessarily instrumentalists themselves. And especially with nowadays more extended techniques, digital music, all these things like that. It seems as if that needing to perform contemporary composers takes a certain specialization or a certain taste sometimes even. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that?
Yeah, well, I know what you mean, and also about the tension, but sometimes I get a little bit sad because of this discussion which always takes place, which makes it sound like there are two different categories of music, and that they're like two different camps, and that there is no crossover or something like that. But that's not really the way that I want to view the world. So my music is then easily placed in the camp of accessible music, and then maybe serious composers could look at it in a way like, but it's not, doing novel things or something like that. And then it's like not relevant for the progress that music needs to make. But this is just a very narrow-minded way, I think, to think of music. Again, with the style question, I think of it in much more open terms, because if we think about innovation, which is something that this more complex music is often interested in, then I also think like, innovation can be in so many different ways. Because then I think, for example, of Bach, he's like a really standard example, I think, of someone who took all these existing things and became really a master of it. And I don't know, would you say that he's an innovator or not? I think that, he has the innovations that he brings are really nuanced inside his music. But they're not, if you say do something new and you just make it completely basic and say which means something that no one has ever done before, then you lose all the nuance of small things that can happen in music, combining certain harmony with certain rhythm, or, I don't know, it's even really difficult to talk about it right now. But I think that the problem of this debate between accessible music and complex music is that all the nuance gets lost, because you can have both. And complexity has so many forms, right? And if you... if we just get rid of this really strong dichotomy between the two things, then we can have exchanges between the worlds, and it doesn't have to feel so claustrophobic or something like that. Because I'm really not against composers who like to play with extended techniques, and I also like to have the option of extended techniques on my palette as a composer, so I can use them when they become appropriate, or, when I want to use them, because I think that's the most important thing, that we feel free to express whatever it is in whatever piece that we're going to write. And that's the problem about this discussion, or this idea of the one music versus the other type of music. We lose the freedom to cross the boundaries, right? And I think that's really important, that we don't have an ideological wall between whatever genre there is.
Of course, but we also, I think it comes from a lack of understanding, and I have to say that personally, sometimes I also lack understanding in certain composers, especially when I'm not really educated in them. I try to keep an open mind, but there are instances where you get composers who tell you to pour water on the piano or something, which you're just you hope to set apart from Bach, for example.
Of course, but you also need to keep in mind that of the great composers of the past, only a few are still being played, and only a few pieces of those great composers are still being played. And in those times, a lot of bad pieces were also being written, which we've forgotten about.
True.
And that's also kind of the fun part about new music being written today. This we haven't gone through the selection process of, this piece is really a good piece, it worked out well. This piece, nice attempt, but not great. Not a great idea, pouring water on the piano. That's you wrote it down, but now we try something different. So, of course, if you have the field of new music being written today, statistically there are going to be more bad pieces between them than all the master works that have been put through the test,
test of time,
test
of course.
Of time. So that's also like not a fair comparison, I think, to make. And there's also a responsibility of the composer to communicate well with, if you have a really conceptual piece, then you need to take a bit more effort, put a bit more effort into communicating with your musician, so they understand what they're doing, and also with your audience. So that's part of the work. And I think that can be done. It can be done well, it can be done badly, but in that way it's all the same for every piece. Any piece can be executed well or badly, and any piece can fail or succeed. So in that way, I don't think there is a big difference. Or do you? I mean, I'm interested if you disagree with this.
No, I definitely agree. I think you give a very nuanced argument about it. And I think that sometimes it's easy for us to come to conclusions after one or two attempts. But exactly the reason I am speaking to you is because you've given me the inspiration or the idea that there is, music out there that are trying to navigate these nuances as well. And, we shouldn't be categorizing this as classical music, that as contemporary music, and more of a dialogue in between the two. And so I'm always interested in knowing, especially from a composer's point of view, what this is. And so do you have composers who, contemporary composers you admire, or perhaps you try to also look into seeing how they can, inspire you as well?
Yeah, I was thinking I should have prepared this question better, because I cannot really pick someone.
It's okay, or like just any certain instances where you heard a music of a certain composer, you thought, oh wow, that's really cool. I would try this out.
That's hard to say, because I always, like any concert I go to, I always hear something in it that I find interesting, and it doesn't really matter to me from what time they are, but that's like a really boring and broad and maybe cop-out answer, but it does, it's still in line with the way that I think about music, which is really kind of broad and open. I try to keep this openness because, again, because of this palette, I always hear like the different elements on the palette. And then sometimes I'm just, when I'm in a concert, I'm emotionally in it, and I get just swept away by something which carries me. And sometimes I'm at a concert and then I'm quite bored by it. But then I start to analyze, okay, so why am I bored by it? And it's also not necessarily because it's a bad piece, but maybe the piece is not doing the thing that I am searching for. So, for example, what I hear quite often when I go to contemporary music, I mean, definitely not all pieces, but something that recurs, which I find lacking, is that you often have these blocks, these harmonic blocks, which are quite static. And even when there is a kind of harmonic progression in it, then it's still kind of like these big blocks that are happening. And then I get quite bored because I like the harmonic rhythm to have a bit more movement and variety in it. And then now by listening to that, I've been able to analyze that. But that doesn't mean that the piece is not good, because you always need to make a distinction between what you as a composer or a listener want and what the composer who wrote the piece was trying to aim for. Because if the composer just, if to make like a really simple example, if you are looking for a blue painting, but the composer wanted to make a yellow painting, and that's what they made, then it's like not fair to be angry with them for not making a blue painting.
I think that's so true. I think that's so true. And it would be the ignorance of the audience to say, therefore, it is bad. It is simply not to your taste. Or not what you're looking for.
And then, but sometimes, so for me, I can then try to switch also the way that I listen to it. Then I think, okay, it's not blue, which is something I like, but let's look at this yellow painting and see, okay, what did they do and what other things can I find in it? So maybe that's also a composer's thing, but I think it's also, as an attitude for an audience member, it's really nice if when you go to new music, you can have an open mind and try to search in the music. And sometimes the music just takes you along and you don't need to do any work. But sometimes it can also be fun to think like, okay, so this piece, it doesn't really speak to me, but what are they trying to do? I don't mind really listening to a piece that I'm not convinced by, but still I'm interested to try and understand.
So do you think that how music is being programmed now, sometimes in orchestral concerts, they would have the standard program and then they would also insert music by a contemporary composer. Or, of course, you have also music that is concerts that are specializing in new music, ensembles that are specializing in new music. Do you think that there's a bright future for this? Or do you think there are certain things, that could be done better in order to kind of bridge this gap between audience or most audiences' understanding of what contemporary music is? I'm thinking now broader, like programming.
It's quite broad. So it's difficult, of course, to say something real about this because I don't go to all the concerts that there are, and I'm not a programmer, and I don't have any statistics about anything. So it's just like fake feelings that I can, or intuitions that I can say. But so I think if you talk about like the really hardcore contemporary experimental side of things, I think that has always been kind of a niche thing. Like has a smaller audience, and like you say, musicians who really specialize in this. But I think it's really important that we keep this niche thing alive because it's very fragile. But it has such an important place if you think about music as this big organism, also outside classical music, right? Because we also we're never in isolation in the world. And it's great that we have these people who are, from their intrinsical curiosity, doing these experimental things, which maybe some people think, oh, this is weird, I don't want to do this. But some people think it's really great, and you can always take inspiration from that. So we are like one big organism with different tastes, but we can have conversations together and inspire each other. And then I do think that it's a pity because contemporary music sometimes still has this feeling of, oh, it's complex and it doesn't want to communicate. And then maybe some audiences and musicians feel like, oh, they're maybe being looked down on or not being communicated with. And that is something which I also don't really like if I'm a member in the audience and a piece is being performed, but it feels like just information that is being thrown at me.
Yeah.
But there are ways to do that so that the audience feels invited to listen. For example, something very simple you can do is to have a talk before it, you know, that the composer can say a few things, or that the conductor says a few things, like the piece is about this, or the composer has tried to do this, and that's just a way to say like, hey, listen, I made this for you. It's not that you're in the hall and and the piece is being played and I could care less if you're in the hall or not. You know, that's not a nice feeling to have. And I'm not saying that contemporary music has this, but I think it's like an aura that it can have, which is a pity, because I know so many different composers and some are really experimental, but they want to communicate, they want to share their ideas, and they have something of value. You know, they work for months on these things, and it can open new worlds. But communication around it also, that's really key, I think.
So as a composer, you must be, you know, as you said, working by yourself a lot. How do you manage, like just tell me a day in your life.
Yeah, so routine it's also kind of a struggle that I have to find a good routine. Because I always feel like I'm not working enough, but at the same time, I feel like I'm putting my entire life on hold because I need to work. And, you know, those things, apparently they're both feel true at the same time. They're kind of a paradox, right? So I'm really trying still to find the right balance between the work-life balance. But that's part of composing. I think that it's always happening, always in the back of your head, also when you're not behind the piano or behind the sketchbook or whatever it is that you're doing. So you're always thinking about it, especially when you get in a certain stage of composing. Then sometimes I'm with my husband and he's talking to me, and then I hear the words that he says, but I'm also, you know, listening to the piece in my head and thinking about that. And then,
what?
yeah, exactly. That happens a lot, especially if you're like at the final 1/3 of the process where everything goes quite quickly. Because I think this creative process, if you have a piece, then in the beginning, it's a really nice stage because everything is still uncertain. And everything is still possible. And I've heard that some people are kind of afraid of the empty page, that they need to do something. But I don't think I really have that problem, because I really like this stage in which I can just improvise or philosophize depending on what the piece is going to be about. And I like to extend this period where everything is possible for as long as I can, because it's so nice to be in this dream world, but also because I'm really a perfectionist, and this is like my first problem that I need to try to improve or get a hold of better, because it stops me from getting concrete. Because the moment that you start to write down, it feels very permanent.
Okay.
So I need to train that. I tell myself, no, I can write the sketches down, I can change it later, because then you take away the pressure of perfectionism, that it needs to be real right away, right? Because that's the difference between this first stage. You have the dream world where everything is possible, and it feels concrete in your head, but you haven't written it down yet. And then you start writing it down, and then suddenly it becomes real, and you feel like you're stuck on this idea. You know you need to commit to the idea. But then if you get past that first stage, then you feel a bit more freedom again, because then you can start to, schaven is the word that I use in Dutch. So you have your idea, but then you need to crystallize it, and you can always change all these things, and it's probably going to take a different direction from what you first thought. So then it grows again organically, and there's a lot of fun playing around with the notes and the material that you have. Just, you know, putting your hands in the clay, so to speak. And then this world, which was not there yet, starts with a small seed, and then it kind of grows exponentially. because then from one idea comes a different idea, and then the form happens, and all the things, all the questions that you had, they kind of start answering themselves. And sometimes you get stuck somewhere, but then you think about it a little bit, and then the answer comes, and you're like, oh yeah, of course, that was what it.
So you think it's a kind of not wanting to set it down on paper is a little bit of a fear, but once you do actually set it down, there's another kind of new discovery that comes with this writing process as well.
Yeah, and I need to remember that even if I write it down, then I can still change a lot of things.
Yes.
But so that's like a silly thing, because you can say like, oh, obviously you can change things, but it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, no.
So that's like one of these small switches in my head that I become aware of, that I have this very rigid idea of, okay, no, but it needs to be because that's the kind of the perfectionist and all other kinds of tendencies that I have, that I need to be aware of, so that they don't block me or guide me.
Interesting.
So I think it's really good to know yourself and know the way that your brain works, and also the way that your brain tries to trick you.
Yeah.
Because so I have like a really mixed feelings about my own perfectionism, because I think it has also a really good side to it. Because as a composer, you need to be precise. I think there are a lot of advantages to being precise, because of course you need to take all the decisions. I need to put the note there, but it's not just a note, it has a context in the whole piece. I need to put the accents there, I need to know about every note. You need to know why it's there, and you need to write it as precisely as possible, so that you can give it to the musician and they understand what's there. And everything that's fake, that costs time or is just, that's a pity. So you need to be very precise. It's, I think, a job of precision. It's part of it. But if if it becomes stifling for you, this perfectionism, then also you cannot play and be free and breathe and express and try. You always need this human element. I think humans are imperfect, and that's also a beautiful part of us. We shouldn't want to be perfect machines. Yeah. But sometimes I feel in classical music, it feels like a goal to reach for perfection. And that's beautiful to have that goal, to reach for the stars, I always think. But at the same time, we need to be aware that we are just human beings, and that there's also beauty in imperfection. And the most beautiful thing is not the achievement of taking this star from the sky, but reaching for it. Yeah. There is beauty in reaching for the stars, and we don't need to take them from the sky.
And of course, like handling your own, say, very human fears in your perfectionism, you must also, as a composer, handle it delicately and softly, because you don't want it to become, you're not working a 9 to 5. You're not trying to be like, okay, this has to be done there. You have to give it a space to also allow yourself to be creative within this kind of tension between, oh, I want this to be perfect, and let's just enjoy the process kind of thing. It has to be.
Yeah, and that's also like double, because you do need a discipline, of course.
Yes.
Right? You need to put a lot of time in it. Yeah. But it's tricky to find a way to do this healthily, mentally, course. I think. So there's a lot of, for me at least, the mental aspect of trying to get the right mindset. And in this is also part of my struggle in the routine, that for 10 years I actually started inventing music when I was 9 as a little girl behind the piano, but then I studied composition after high school, and I finished my bachelor in 2016. So now after that I didn't do a master's, but I studied a little bit of classical singing while I also composed. And so for 10 years now I've been a professional composer after my studies, but it's been this kind of constant search to find the right way to approach it, and I think I'm still not completely there yet. But there's a lot of I think the mistakes that I've been making is that I have been repressing a lot of my own needs, and not setting any boundaries.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do that more. So, for example, I've walked around with this feeling for a long time that there was always time to compose, also when it was like in the middle of the night. That I always could, I could compose in the evening, could compose in the morning, could compose until 2 o'clock in the middle of the night. But that also puts pressure on you, because then you start thinking, I should.
Yes.
And then you think, oh, okay, I'm not allowed to see my friends now because I need to write this piece and I should work on it day and night.
Especially when you have a deadline.
Yeah, and I always have deadlines.
Yes.
So, that's can become really a heavy pressure on a person.
And have you found some ways to deal with that, like giving yourself this, okay, I have to start work now and I have to finish composing at a certain time during a day? Or do you, when you're in the moment, or when you're feeling inspired, or whether it be deadline, you give in to this kind of, okay, let's just do it? Because there's always this, I would say, romantic perception of artists and composers who give into their inspiration and just, go for it. You think of Beethoven at the piano, like going crazy, just writing, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But do you think it's very important to just try to be as regular as possible, whether this be at the beginning stage or at the later stage of a composition?
Yeah, I think it's good to find this balance between routine and flexibility within the routine. And like I said, I'm still figuring that out, but what I try to do now is that I also acknowledge that I need to have my rest and my free time, which is just really clear time that I don't have to compose, because that's something, like I said, I thought I always can do it, so I always have to do it. So I felt guilty about all the other things that I did, which were not composing. I always feel like, oh no, but now I'm lying on the couch, doing something for fun, but I should actually be composing. And that's just not a healthy way, because you cannot recharge. But at the same time, it's also good to block the time. So I just try to, I know what time do I get up? Usually at around 8. And then I like to go for a walk first.
Okay.
Because it's good to move the body a little bit and empty the mind. And then I have just a large block until 6 o'clock. And then we have dinner, and there's a little block, a lunch break in between. But the other, the other 2 blocks, just morning and afternoon. I try to, not do other activities.
Okay.
But also not be very strict in what I'm going to do, because that kind of depends on what stage of the piece I am in. And sometimes I go out again for a little walk, or I go to my balcony. I like to take these little breaks when I feel that I'm tired, because sometimes I'm behind the piano and then I'm just inspired. I get sucked into the thing that I'm doing, and you get into the flow state. And then after a certain amount of time, often you notice that your concentration kind of goes away again. And then okay, now I take a little break. But then I think it's important during the breaks to know what is good to do and what is dangerous to do. So for example, something I do to protect my time is to block all internet during the day. So I don't have internet until 6 o'clock.
Wow.
And that's but that's kind of important.
Was that something you consciously did at the beginning and found it difficult, or did you just gradually realized, oh, actually I don't need it?
Well, I don't need it, because sometimes I needed to look up some things, but then I have exceptions, like I can look on Wikipedia for some things or something, but all the other things like YouTube or social media or stuff like that is just blocked.
Wow.
But I think that just gives kind of calm to have that.
You don't find it difficult to? I mean, I'm very much connected to social media, internet all the time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But doesn't that, because I know that it gives me this anxious feeling if I have to. I notice it that, for example, when I'm stressed out, that I just start checking my messages, even though I don't need to, because it's kind of this nervous anxiety thing that I start doing that. It's like a thing that you do to run away from your feelings, right? You feel kind of restless.
Yeah.
And you have this restlessness and then this ability to kind of have the world at your fingertips if you just press a few buttons.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fall into this thing where you don't have to face your own restlessness.
Yeah.
But I think it's really good to learn to be with your restlessness.
Oh, yeah.
So you can feel that it's not a pleasant feeling. I don't like feeling restless. But once you learn that it's with you, but it also goes away after a bit, then you don't have to be so afraid of it and you don't have to keep running away from it. And that's really important to kind of learn in a gentle way that you don't have to run away from any of these things. I don't have to run away from my peace or my restlessness or my negative feeling that comes, because I can breathe through it, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm also not completely against internet. I really like YouTube, for example. I can watch some videos there which are inspiring to me, but I need to make sure that it doesn't take too much time.
Yeah.
Because all these things are built in a way that they try to make you addicted to them, right?
Yeah.
They keep feeding you. And you can, if you pay attention to it, you can also feel it in your body, I think. Because then I watch one YouTube video and I'm happy. I'm like, oh, this is a nice video. I will watch it. I'm having a good time. Little break. But then I see all these recommendations. And then, oh, I press this. And oh, this is also... And then I feel like, oh, suddenly I'm committed to... I have to watch all these YouTube videos. And I'm doing that. And where's my time going? I just don't like that feeling. And I know it's much easier if I just cut it off. And then also... it's not your habit anymore, so you don't become addicted. But what really matters to me is also that I heard that they have these big media companies, they have psychologists who try to find out the best way to put the right sound in and the right color and whatever to make you as addicted as possible, because they want to grab your attention. When you think about that, I always become angry, because I feel like it's free services, but they're trying to steal my time from me. And if you think about the most important thing that, is yours, is your time. Basically, they're trying to take your life from you. That's a very dramatic way to put it. But I do feel that is something they're trying to do. And then also as a composer, what my job, what is it that I do? Well, I spent months and months trying to compose a few crystallized minutes of music, right? So there's so much blood, sweat and tears and dedication put into a few minutes that are just gone after that. And that's also the beauty of music, that it's just this tiny bit of time. And then if you put that against all this crap on social media and that they're fast food putting... Well, there are great things on the internet, but I feel like it's a dangerous place to go. Yeah, no,
I think it's just beautiful to talk to you and to remind me once again why classical music, or real works of art with real intention behind, is important, because it reminds you that in a world where everything moves so fast, everything needs to be loud and provocative, and there's still room for things to grow very slowly, for you to pay attention to yourself.
And for it to be real. I think that's important, because I also notice just during my free time when I'm home with my husband and, we're just relaxing or eating dinner, it's even easy, you're tired. And then what do? You open your laptop and you watch your screen, you watch something on your screen. Yeah. And sometimes you can have really a good time watching something. But sometimes it's also just this default thing that you do because you're tired and restless, and it's like this, how do you call it? It's like an effortless version of life. Yeah. Is there some
Dutch word for this?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I was just thinking it's not real life. It feels like you're living, but you're just watching it from the sideline. And I think that's fine sometimes to tune out, But if you're not careful, then you're watching life happen on a screen and you're not living life itself. And that's just something that I think would be a pity.
Yeah.
And you also become addicted to having just things to occupy your attention all the time. And if you don't have this, then you feel restless and empty. But yeah, I don't want to lose the ability to just look around and go on my balcony and smell my flowers, right? You will not find the smell of a flower on your screen.
Yeah.
It cannot do that.
Yeah, no,
and that
of
is
course.
something I find much more inspiring if I take a little break in between composing than going on a screen and I don't know. Yeah.
And I think even just talking to you, I can feel that you really feel the beauty in all these, in living really. And I think what that comes to my final question, I suppose, is, and I guess it is kind of two parts now, this question, is do you think that composers have a sort of obligation to society nowadays? Because it seems like, even just you saying this, it feels to me that there already is this reminder that there is something real in music and that we should connect. But, you know, do you have any more thoughts on this? And also, I kind of, I found a quote from the NPO Classique interview that you did.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Let's see if I agree with it still.
So it's about your personal philosophy of life and your, shall I say, what's the word? It's not agnostic. It's atheism.
Okay.
Yeah, finding the meaning of life if one does not believe in God. You said that you were not raised in a church environment, but you've come to the conclusion that you are a believer and that you believe in love, truth, and beauty as foundations of existence. But you can't prove this in a quite tangible way. But it's something that occupies and you think about this all the time. And you said that when I listen to music and experience that beauty and am completely overwhelmed by it, then I cannot help but believe in beauty. And then I cannot help but believe in love because I am so filled with, because I have become so filled with it. Do you still feel that? And does this kind of tie into your artistic purpose, or what drives you to continue composing?
Yeah, I think so. So sounds
two-part
like
question.
These sound like really grand things, but I do think that it's still what I believe and what's at the essence of life for me. I think it's good to think about how you want to, what your values are, what you find important in life, so you have something to orientate towards.
Yeah.
And so love and beauty and truth, these things are, I think, key core concepts that I can always think about when I'm feeling distressed or in doubt, you know? When I'm worried about a piece, is it going to be good? And I have all these negative, very heavy thoughts about, oh, I feel guilty because I feel like I should have done more, or I'm not sure, whatever, you know, all the things that you can think of, you can always return to this feeling of, no, but I'm just a human being, I'm imperfect, I have good intentions, I want to try and make something beautiful to share with the world, to make other people happy, to add something of value to their life. And I'm just trying to do that with everything I have in me, and that's good. And then I can feel kind of a calm and a purpose again, and to find this center again. So it's good to know what the center is. And then when I'm behind, like we were talking about, behind a screen and I have all this anxiety, and then I feel like, yeah, but am I really spending my time now on something that I love doing and that I find important and that makes me happy and inspires me and gives me something? Or am I just trying to push everything away and trying to stop existing in a way? I feel like it's a bit like you switch off the being, but not in a good way that you switch off, that you're just, but I don't know. Then you feel, you can feel it, that you're away from your center, that you're this restlessness, you know, and this emptiness and this anxiety and the kind of sadness in the back of your head. You can feel it when it's there, and then it's time to breathe in and think again about, okay, but what is really what I want my life to be about? Where do I want to focus? And this question about so the relevance of a composer, right? Or what was the word
like
that you
obligation.
used? Obligation. Yeah, so obligation is kind of a heavy word, I think, because it has like a pressure, like you have to do something.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to do something, but I thought about this quite a lot in relation to my own work, because I have colleague composers who write these really politically engaged pieces, and I feel like I don't really do that. And well, maybe especially now it's also, you know, but always there are so many things going on that need to be addressed. So there's definitely something to be said for people who do this. And I take kind of a different direction in my music, but then I think, okay, what I do is maybe not easily put in a category of, okay, politically engaging, but I do try to make something which I think is valuable and which maybe reflects a little bit of this philosophy that I have of the way that I want to approach life, in the small nuanced things, you know, in the loving way that I want to approach the music, and things that are simple and that are beautiful and that are fun or whatever. Those are also at the core of life, and those are also necessary. So in that way, I think that every voice, every composer's voice and every person's voice has something to add and something to give to the world.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we all have something to give, and composers have the music to give. So that's just what we have to do.
And I think even just talking to you has made me feel this. I did not expect us to have... I came here expecting it to be a conversation on like what it means to be a composer, but instead what I found is what it means to enjoy, appreciate life. So even this conversation is to me like such a beautiful thing.
Oh, thank you.
And I thank you very much for this. This has been such a meaningful conversation, Mathilde.
For me as well.
Thank you so much for being here and for sharing with me, for sharing with all of us your thoughts.
You're very welcome, and thank you too.
Yeah. If you've enjoyed this episode, if you've enjoyed the insight that Mathilde has shared, then I would highly suggest giving her music a listen. I will leave links of YouTube recordings in the description below, so feel free to check them out. But I'm sure if you Google Mathilde Wantenaar's name, something will show. And her music is just something wonderful and has something for everyone. As usual, if you've enjoyed this episode, please give the show a follow if you're on Spotify, and give us a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, as this will really help the show grow. I appreciate you so much for listening. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.